Right, hello, I'm Dr. Chaos. Welcome to Battlesector. We are doing the Deeds of the Fallen campaign, which is this is a battle campaign. Basically, the we are on the world of Ashenfell. Used to be a forge world, but because it became icy and snowy, it can't, can't really be a forge world anymore. So, but anyway, now orcs are invading and the Sisters of Battle are going to deal with it. First mission is the inception into the planet. Our force of sisters are going to reinforce the local garrison. Um, Now, Sisters of Battle are a lot more squishy compared to the Space Marines. Um, so yeah, our initial force is we have a handful of Sisters of Battle. Um, These are the basic troopers, have bolt guns. Does take a few. We have some Zeraphim, which are the melee combat jump pack troops. We have a Hospitaller, Sister Dominica, I think her name is. We have the Canoness, and we have a Sister Superior. Especially later in the campaign, I end up losing a bunch of Sister Superior, so it basically ends up being more like I'm feeding Sister Superior to the Xenos forces. We we are basically dealing with boys and Gretchen. There's some war trikes, and I want to say there's a unit of burner boys somewhere around here. Um, but yeah, we do take some losses this battle, but not too many. We did expand we did ourselves some Celestian Sanctuscents or something along those lines. The shielded ones. They're kind of a melee troop. They weren't the best overall, though. But yeah, mission 2. Basically, we're moving on to a local chapel. There is a rhino. It is. We can't move the rhino around, but it's there. Um, and basically, there's unknown what's inside, but Sister Dorian sure believes it's to be wounded, so we need to go up and clear the foes out from nearby. Basically, we end up splitting into three forces, one going up the center, one going up one side, one going up another. Um, but ultimately, we do our work. Mission 3 is the Defense of Ionis, which is the basically defending the station we fought at the last battle. So by this point, I have gotten my first Celestians, which become a staple of my future battle line. I've equipped them with flamers, and turns out flamers are very, very good, especially again, like a lot of the orc stuff isn't too tough. Like a unit of flamers can deal with them easily enough. We are being attacked on all sides. Still have an unmoving rhino, but the goal is basically to run around and take out 4 different units of knobs, which will make the enemy forces run away. The knobs were tough. I mean, it makes sense. They were knobs. Um, yep. We were also dealing with Storm Boys who were jumping around, and there's some knobs. Again, we're taking a lot of losses, but the Sisters of Battle are kind of fragile overall. There were some Rocket Boys, but obviously we didn't really have too many tanks, so it did kind of minimize their effectiveness. Um, yeah, we just kind of plugged the gaps and hunted enemy units down one by one. The Sisters of Battle have this thing, they get more momentum whenever they get attacked. Um, and pair that with the Celestian's Flamers, it means they can rapidly get um, the yeah, here's Burner Boys. They are they are also flame troops. Um, but yeah, flamers, they turn out to be really good, especially throughout this campaign. The contents of the Rhino was Sister Leona, a imagifier. Um, she is allegedly from Sanctum Alte, which we decide to be our next goal because, well, we need a we have been cut off from our orbital reinforcements, so we need basically somewhere to bunker down and plan our next moves. Which leads us into our next mission. Basically, ambush at the crossroads. We get a bunch of units in this one. So we get access to Retributors, which are the Sisters of Battle's heavy weapons units. I did use these, but I like occasionally throughout the campaign, but I really only kept them with heavy bolters. We did also get Dominions. After this mission, I literally never used Dominions again. They come with Storm Bolters as a base weapon, but they can be upgraded. They're meant to be the elite, but not like character guarding elite. They're more equivalent to Space Marine veterans. But yeah, after this mission, I literally do not use them again. We also don't use the Rhino after this mission, now I think about it. And the enemy gains access to Deathcopters, which are basically, helicopters. They have rockets on them, which makes us go, hey, push forward to the other end of the canyon, but the enemy is just going to continue coming. But yeah, we also don't use the Rhino after this, because, funnily enough, the ability to have a transport, I'm probably just wasn't using it right, but, I would rather have another actual weapons unit, like something that does damage, than the Rhino, because we're moving up everyone in a kind of group anyway. But yeah, when we get close to the enemy, like to the edge of the group, we get reinforcements. We also get access to the Castigator. The Castigator turns out to be very useful. Oh yeah, the enemies also starts getting looters or flash goods or something. They get both throughout this campaign, but yeah. The Castigator becomes a mainstay of our battle line from now on, but I do swap them out for autocannons instead of the battle cannons, literally after this mission. And, like, as you can see here, I went for a second Castigator. I decided to drop all the jump pack troops. They just weren't hitting as hard as I would like. At this point, I was still holding on to wanting to use Celestian Sacrosancts. Yeah, whatever. I'll fuck that up the entire video, let's face it. And I do have a basic sister kind of frontline. Yeah, that was my reserves. You can see everything I didn't keep. Yeah. Next was Seeking Sanctuary. Basically, we had to fight our way up to Sanctum Alte. We also hunted down a few characters that were littered around the place. A mech boy on top of the first hill. There was a weird boy at the top, like right next to the sanctum, and I think the pain boy was up at the first hill. The mech boy was part of the kind of second group that we ran into. But yeah. Ultimately, we want to fight our way up here, but we do also want to find out more about Leona, because she did kind of disappear out of nowhere. Following this, we did gain access to the emulator, which is basically less of a transport tank, but it has a gun on top. I did try it out. I gave it multi-melters. It didn't do as well as I wanted to. Anyway, so it doesn't stay in the battle roster for long. But yeah, next mission, Sanctum Auto. The Sanctum is overrun by greenskins. Basically, we want to fight our way up. The enemy did have meganobs, which are basically they're kind of like Terminator equivalents for orcs. Basically, heavily armored orc warriors. By now I had like a full front line of Celestians, which honestly worked really well and cooked practically anything they came across. And I noticed and unlike in the last campaign, we have, like I do notice the buttons to open the door. We gain access to Paragon Warsuit and Repentia. I don't end up using the Repentia after this either. They are very lightly armored and carry massive chainswords in, and honestly I just preferred the longer range from other stuff. But I did keep the Paragon Warsuits in my order of battle from now on. I only kept them with the... Yeah, I literally lost the emulator in this one, which is why I didn't bother getting another one. But yeah, the Paragon Warsuits, they were useful. One, like I had them equipped with bolters, which did enough damage, and they were also decent in melee. But they also have basically a rocket pod, which was great for mopping up Gretchen, because they did enough damage that just a shot from the rocket pod could just kill a unit of Gretchen. But yeah, after the battle we do look in the files, and basically there is no Leona in the systems, which is suspicious in and of itself. But yeah, one thing I would like to say, the art in this game is very good. I honestly think the art is amazing. But yeah, this gives suspicion on what Leona actually on who Leona actually is. So yeah. So we continue fighting our way forward. But this is where we get ambushed by the second foe of the campaign, the Tau. Basically, the Tau, long range, but but they're a lot squishier than Sisters of Battle are, as we very quickly find out. As I accidentally I accidentally completed this mission a little early, but yeah. Honestly, the Tau weren't too bad to fight. I think they were squishy enough to get destroyed by the Celestians anyway. But yeah, this leads us into a little bit of a side tangent where we end up fighting the Tau. The stealth suits were annoying, because they did have a deceptively high amount of health. But yeah, their stealth suits, they could turn invisible, and they could do a bit of quite a bit of damage. They had, I think they're called Devilfish, but it's basically the two-person bike. They had a bunch of drones around the place, and they had the Cadre Fireblades, which honestly, the Fireblades were annoying. Long range, decent damage. Took out like, and because they're characters, obviously they get 2 action points, which means they took out a bunch of my stuff. Then there's Pathfinders and like fire teams or something. The Pathfinders, they were actually really painful to fight because they had their weapons are more like shotguns. Um, and by the Emperor, did those shotguns hurt? Um, yeah, I made sure to actually take out breacher teams before they could get close from then on. Next was the assault on the spaceport. Basically, we were going to take a spaceport, so we had both access to off-world troops, and at this point, canonically, she wanted to get rid of Leona because, didn't know much about her. We needed to find where she was, like what she was. So yeah, this mission was basically fighting our way through the outer port. So they had the Tau did get a few new toys this mission. They got crisis battle suits. Did some decent damage, but they basically the entire thing, they had jump packs, which meant they could jump over and strike close. There were Ethereals, the elite cast of the Tau. They didn't do much damage. The entire thing was basically giving a kind of shield to Tau units, which made them have a little bit more health, but, well, not enough. They were still very squishy. And then we had the Hammerhead gunship. Basically a anti-vehicle kind of gun platform. It didn't have the railgun, which obviously it's known for. It had an ion cannon, but it still did a bit of damage, but not enough to actually destroy any of our castigators, which at this point we had 3 of them. But yeah, following that mission, we added an exorcist to our order of battle. We also got another hospitaller. At this point, I just kind of stopped trying to make the Sister Superior work and just went, you know what, extra healer works well. And the exorcist and artillery tank, we kept one for the rest of the campaign. But yeah, then it was the assault on the actual spaceport, greatly in Tau hands. Basically, there was a couple of battlesuits running around that we had to deal with. Basically, there were 2 like consoles we had to access to open the door, like we dealt with in like a few times in the previous campaign. In the previous campaign. But yeah, once we opened the gate, we had to deal with a bunch more. There was also a ghost kill we dealt with, which turned invisible and just kind of hid from us for a while. But yeah, then we got into the second part of the port, which is the actual landing zone. There was a crisis suit commander, who basically is a leader in a battlesuit because, yeah, there's just a few battlesuits, and then there were 2 Riptide battlesuits, which are basically bigger, but again they were kind of more anti-infantry with the pulse cannons. And we went in with our tanks. Like, we did enough damage, and honestly, taking the Riptides and the commander out was one of the victory conditions. The other would just be getting Leona to the landing pad. But as it turns out, the fleet wasn't willing to send down any ships, so we were stuck with Leona, which honestly turned out to be a good thing. Well, I say a good thing. It was fine. Like, the thing is, I never really used the Image of Fire special abilities. She just kind of ended up being another body in the field. Kind of like, honestly, kind of like, Kroganax back in the Kroganax, and also the sister in Superior in that campaign. They were kind of just there. Would have like they were 3 units, but other than that, like nothing too special. By this point, we just kind of started following Leona around. She'd be like, "Hey, let's go here," and we just kind of obeyed. But at this point, we were chasing the Tau. Turns out they were leading us into a bunch of orcs to get us off their tail. And at this point, Leona went, "Hey, I know a sanctum here. Let's go." To basically bunker down and plan our next move there. This did introduce us to Death Dreads, basically big hulking monstrosities made by the orcs. They did they fell easily to the castigators and never really faced us in large enough numbers to be too much of a threat, which I found kind of happened overall throughout the campaign. Like whenever they sent something out at us, it wasn't really in enough numbers that I couldn't deal with. Like I was able to basically easily target prioritize and take things down before they could become a threat for the most part. But yeah, we easily fought our way through. We did send some units off to basically cover the other approaches, but at that point they didn't send in anything at enough rate to deal with. That could become too much of a problem. And when we do get to the facility, we find that in there is it's a tomb. And in there is a Sister Leona. So at this point, I was running under the assumption that it is likely that this previous Leona might be back from the dead. And basically, the Emperor protects and stuff. But at this point, so we just kind of started following Leona around, and this led us into the penultimate mission. I think penultimate means second to last, which is basically clear an orc camp fully. I will admit, hubris got the better of me here. Early on, we were doing very well. We sent the Celestians up to basically burn away orcs, orc groups very, very easily. We sent the tanks to deal with anything too heavy. But by the end of the mission, well, we had taken a lot of losses. Some units we had very low down. At this point, Cilicia, if she got hit by one more thing, we would have lost the mission and had to redo it. A bunch of our tanks got very low, and I honestly didn't want to lose them because we wouldn't have been able to get more in for the final mission. But ultimately, we did secure victory, even if we did lose some Celestians and some Paragon Warsuits to do it. So going into the final mission, we had the characters, we had an extra Hospitaller, but I did have to take back a regular sister squad into the fight. And, well, we were going into the Ashen Sanctum. This is the final fight of the campaign. It is one of the last places where lava is still actually flowing on the planet. Um, and this is where the sisters decide to have a last stand. Um, there are exorcists up on the hill, ready to do one final volley, but last minute, there's the decision to hold their fire until because something greater is coming. So we fight our way up to the altar where Leona stands. I put my hospital up there as well. Here we take a lot of losses. Orcs are coming in at every angle. I accidentally cooked my Paragon Warsuit alive, and practically all my and I had the Canoness on Celicia on basically her last legs. Again, she fell, she rose, and the orcs were doing bombing runs. They sent in everything they could up these steps, and we hear that the Tau are also on their way, coming to finish us, and whatever left is off. But at the final hour, what we are waiting for happens. The orc war boss comes to attack. All my other forces clear from the hill, while Leona keeps the orc war boss in position for one final exorcist fire.
Light, Leona, your deeds will be told. Artillery, you have your target. Prepare to fire!
At this point I did honestly think I would have had to hold for like another a turn or two.
In Catherine's footsteps do we walk. With faith, strength, and fury do we strike. For the fallen do we seek vengeance. With the Emperor's wrath do we defy the enemy.
But yeah, no trace of Leona was ever found. The fires of Ashenfell begin to reignite for the first time in millennia. Honestly, I like the campaign. It was shorter than the Space Marine run, and honestly, I think it did serve it well. So yeah. I was originally planning on doing a 100% of Batman Arkham next, but well, my recording software crashed, so I lost everything. I lost all that footage, and I'm not doing it again just now. But yeah, as I was recording, the Slytherin put the roadmap for Battlesector up, so I just thought I'd quickly talk about it. So yeah, as you can see, we're getting both Black Legions and Ultramarines this year. We will be getting a new narrative campaign and a few other updates. But yeah, mid this year. So obviously this is northern hemisphere things, so it'll be winter for me in Australia. But yeah, and we will be getting a new faction by the end of the year as well, which is unknown at this stage. Honestly, I little surprised that like sometimes when like that it's still going. But yeah, I don't know whether I'll jump in and do a few like other Crusade game mode. I might, and then also the same with the planetary domination one. But yeah, we're getting stuff. See you next time. Like, subscribe, do YouTube stuff, please. It makes like, I don't want to say like, oh, it makes everything worth it, but honestly, I mean, it's part of the reason why I actually did sit down and do the Deeds of the Fallen campaign, because I was honestly putting it off until Vibrate 2810. Say basically, ask if I was going to be doing it. And yeah, decided on doing it, so thank you. You pushed me to doing this. In a good way, of course. But yeah, see you all next time. Don't know if I'll do something for next week, or whether it'll be a week after thing. Honestly, it depends how long the next game I decide to play ends up being. But yeah, see you next time. Goodbye.